Shalom, shalom, Yahweh Bashem, Yahweh Shah, Barakatah, your brother Yara. Man, we about to go to PG County. They got a public hearing on lynching in PG County. This is gonna be interesting. Definitely going up in there. Keep you informed what's going on. This before camp.
Not stop Chapel Hill's growth and prosperity. The Black farming community continued to grow as a collection of tight-knit families centered around two Methodist churches. During the first few years of Reconstruction, Black political power grew astronomically. Unfortunately, this was followed by a brutal, violent backlash, both by mobs and through the legal system. Many of the 34 mass lynchings perpetrated during Reconstruction were driven by rage over the success of Black political power and intended to squash out participation. To the extent that federal authorities were willing to protect Black voters, organizers, and officials from these attacks, the tools they had available were blunted by a series of Supreme Court decisions. Without protection from the federal government, Black voting power was effectively stomped out in the South through the threat of violence and Jim Crow laws like felony disenfranchisement. It was not until the victories of the civil rights movement that Black voting rates began to recover. Yet we are once again in a period of backlash against Black political power. After Barack Obama was elected president, 24 states quickly imposed strict voter ID laws, thinly veiled efforts to suppress those voters who turned out to elect him. The Supreme Court continues to chip away at the Voting Rights Act. Congress is now considering the, quote, SAVE Act, which will disenfranchise naturalized citizens, poor and elderly people. The Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division has been instructed to cease all new cases and settlements. We ask what Maryland can do to shore up its own laws and constitution to protect political equality and voters of color against this attack. But there is also more to do to move the needle forward. As we know, Maryland just sent its first ever Black woman to the Senate, but it is only the fourth state to have ever done this in the nearly 250 years of this country. How can we expand the franchise and increase voter participation? Finally, our group reaches our last stop, the center of the Chapel Hill community, which would become the site of the soil collection and remembrance of Mr. Jureks. We reflect on what it means to tell the story of the racial terror that happened here. While the government of Maryland and Prince George's County's formal efforts at truth and reconciliation are still young, we recognize that Black communities have been telling stories of racial terror for centuries. In 1890, Ida B. Wells published Southern Horrors, Lynch Law in All Its Phases, risking her life over and over to honor the victims of lynching and shed light on the practices of racial terror. Black journalists, organizers, historians, and community leaders have long been presenting lynching narratives so as to heal the community, tell the truth, and inspire action. We ask how our truth-telling can also lead to reparation, reconciliation, and justice. For my part, retracing the steps of Thomas Jureks has provided me an opportunity to reflect on these questions with others, to examine my family's legacy as a series of real events involving real people with real impacts that echo today. This allows me to think tangibly about what I can do to atone and to individually to organize private reparations. I'm only at the start of that journey. And so is Maryland. We are still in the process of our truth, reparation, and reconciliation work, of illuminating and rooting out white supremacy in our political institutions. And we are now about to face the most intense test of our willingness to do this. This federal government wants us to forget the past and recommit to white supremacist violence. We must not. Maryland must go hard in the other direction. We must not allow ICE to use local law enforcement to detain and trade human beings. We must pass bold statewide reparations, systemic, consistent, and meaningful cash investment in Black education, opportunity, and thriving. Maryland should defund criminal legal institutions built on the legacy of slavery and control of Black labor, and instead reallocate that money to
Shalom, shalom. Yeah, we ain't make it back to the PG public hearing on lynching. But yeah, we got some good brothers in there that we was able to speak to. A lot of people, they heard that truth. And yeah, they started seeking it out. And a lot of it was surprising. There was a lot of Edomites in there trying to cleave. They talking about paying for reparations out their own pocket. I'm like, hey, look, all you gotta do is cleave. Take care of Israelites. Hey, but that's what we done today. We wasn't able to get back there. Camp ran a little over. We had a brother came up and he wanted to, he had questions. So, you know, we ain't gonna leave the sheep out there on the highways and byways without answers. So we sat out there a little bit till we missed the coming back to Bowie University. But that was a good WitchCon. I start looking out for more events like that. Events where, you know, you got people out here trying to study, get the truth, and come with solutions. We gonna tell them they can think of all the solutions, but there's only one solution. That's your how about Shim Yahweh Shabrakatah. With that, Kwame Yasharala.